Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart landed as one of the PlayStation 5's exclusive titles on June 11th, 2021. If you find yourself on the fence trying to decide if you should buy the game, you've come to the right place. Whatever your reason for clicking on this video, settle in for a spoiler-free review of Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. What's good, everybody? Jumping right into it, let's first address a simple question. Is this game fun to play? Absolutely yes. For anyone unfamiliar with Ratchet and Clank games, the basic premise is you control a small, furry, gremlin/raccoon type creature, known as a Lombax, who defeats all kinds of enemies on his way to saving the universe. Throw in a few puzzle and platforming sections and the series' brand of sarcasm, and you've got a winning formula that is translated to over 25 million copies sold over the series' 19-year history. Rift Apart features a number of fast-paced action sequences, some of which are on a scale larger than the series has seen before. People have been comparing Ratchet and Clank games to Pixar movies for years now, and this game lives up to the comparison, as you'll feel like you're playing a movie at times. The action is complemented by a variety of over-the-top weapons the series has become known for. Some simple tweaks to the gunplay in the game make combat feel very natural and responsive, making you feel like you're in control of how a fight sequence plays out. While platforming doesn't play as big a role in this game as in the previous entries, Ratchet does get some new moves to help him maneuver through the worlds, which keeps both combat and traversal feeling fresh. Puzzle sections play a fairly prominent role this time around, and serve as a welcome change of pace to keep the player from growing tired of combat. While combat is a heavy focus in the game, there are also some of what I'll call character moments, where the story is driven forward through dialogue as opposed to action. The dialogue addresses questions longtime fans have had with the series, and also lets the audience become acquainted with new characters, who, by the way, are very well written and performed. Although people may know the series for its weapons and combat, the story does have some heart to it and shows the characters progressing through some difficult situations in a way to which its core audience can relate. Bravo to the writing team at developing studio Insomniac for balancing out the story the way they did. The game's progression system allows Ratchet to gain more health as he fights, and allows weapons to level up as they are used. Leveling up a weapon and buying upgrades for it allow it to do more damage, fire faster, hold more ammo, etc, etc. Yes, I did say buying upgrades, but don't worry, there are no microtransactions in the game. Furthermore, the upgrade systems in place are balanced, and they respect the player's time. You likely will not have to take extended breaks away from the main story in order to keep your weapons leveled up. There are 5 difficulty settings to choose from, and at least one of those is going to allow you to play the game how I think the game was meant to be played, which is casually and at a reasonably quick pace. With that said, the harder difficulty settings do not disappoint for those searching for a challenge. Most players can expect to spend somewhere between 8 to 15 hours with the main story, depending on how much they explore and the difficulty setting. I spent somewhere between 9 and 10 hours of gameplay on my first run through the story, and that was on a moderate difficulty setting while keeping the exploration fairly limited. Once your first run through the main story is over, the game offers replay value in the form of collectibles and challenge mode. Collectibles do 2 things in the game. One is they lead to bits of lore that flesh out the world and give it an extra sense of polish. The other is they provide unlockables, which give players options to tailor their gameplay experiences to suit their preferences. Challenge mode lets players play through the entire game once again, while keeping their current weapons, armor, health, etc. The kicker here is enemies become more difficult and there are improved versions of your existing weapons to spend your in-game currency on. This is a welcome returning feature from previous Ratchet and Clank titles, and I'll be surprised if they ever include an entry in the series without it. One question I could see people asking is if they need to play the other games in the series in order to enjoy this one. And the answer is no, you do not. The game's story is fairly well self-contained, and does a good job of explaining context from previous games where necessary. That said, those who do have knowledge of events from prior games will certainly get more enjoyment from Rift Apart because of nods to the stories that have been told before. But a series newcomer can still have a good time with their first playthrough and not be lost in the plot. If you're really curious about the other games and feel like you're missing out, you can always look up a summary or playthrough of those games in the usual internet places. Better yet, if you have the time, money, hardware, and most importantly, desire, you can play the games for yourself. If you have an interest in visiting the previous games but don't want to go through all 15 of them, I recommend the original Ratchet and Clank, the sequel Going Commando, Up Your Arsenal, Tools of Destruction, Crack in Time, and the beginning and ending of Into the Nexus. There, I saved you at least a little time. Now for some miscellaneous topics. There are 2 editions of the game for sale at this time, the Standard Edition and the Deluxe Edition. It's worth noting the Deluxe Edition is only available digitally, so you're out of luck if you want to pick that up as a physical copy. Rift Apart is a single-player experience only, although the games have shown us some multiplayer aspects in the past, this one does not. I don't think that's a huge disappointment to anyone, but I thought I'd throw it out there nonetheless. If you look in the options menu, you will see some tweaks you can make to the game for those who are hearing impaired, vision impaired, or mobility impaired, which I thought was a pretty interesting addition. I don't know if that'll become the norm in the gaming industry. I certainly had never seen anything like this in a game before, so maybe that'll help somebody out. The game comes with an everyone 10+ rating, which feels about right. At times the game does glorify violence. There is a lot of shooting, explosions, and killing enemies, but there is no blood or gore. There's the occasional alcohol reference, but the player character doesn't drink. If any sections of the game contain expletives, they get bleeped out. I only recall one such section in my entire playthrough, but I'll leave myself some room for error in case I forgot any curse words that came up. So if you're a parent wondering if this game is right for your child, do with that info what you will. And then there's the glitches. No game comes without them. While you can expect glitches to pop up at least a handful of times on your playthrough, they are by no means the norm. Insomniac has patched the game a handful of times since launch, which shows me they're actively working to provide the best player experience possible. I do have to warn you though that you may occasionally have to reload a prior save in order to avoid a glitch which is preventing you from progressing. But the game's autosave feature means this is normally no more than 10 to 15 minutes of backtracking. When all is said and done, I would recommend this game to others. For series newcomers, it's a fun standalone game and kicks off the PlayStation 5's life cycle with a bang. For returning players, the game's story strikes a nice balance between continuing where the series left off, while keeping one eye focused on what comes next. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, make it count.